First on film and entertainment, and we have got a cavalcade of champions with us. Sandy Kaye, Peter Krause, Gregory King, fabulous. It has taken us forever. I've got to say that technology and people who collectively, I reckon we must be getting to 250 years. It's kind of like an old tree. It needs a lot of watering. Is it me or is it the technology, Gregory King? What do you reckon?
I think it's a combination of both.
Yeah, fair enough. And Peter Krause, I tell you what, I've pleaded with you, and things have never gone right over the last 4 weeks when we've used this new technology. What is it? Is it you or is it I?
Yes.
Good. And Sandy, you're a spring chicken compared to the rest of us, of course, and you've got it straight away. I had no idea why.
I'm technology savvy, Alex.
That's what it is. Well, you've got your own highly successful World of Claydon program. So did you have a problem when you had to sort of set all of that up, or was that just sort of straightforward, or did somebody else do it for you? That's what I'm asking.
Of course, somebody else has to teach you. You always need a bit of a guru in your life, don't you?
I reckon you need more than the guru. I think that's the case. I have no idea why this is the way it is, but it is. So now the difficulty is my computer is also frozen. Can you believe that? But that's just typical. I can't actually access any of my folders now. That is just magnificent. It just keeps on getting better. Just when you think it couldn't possibly get any worse. I wanted to start, by the way, talking about a great movie, a movie that really surprised me. And by the way, I think there's a misnomer. Alex Garland, Peter, you'd know this. People mistakenly believe that he's Australian. He's English, isn't he?
Yes, he is English. That's right.
So why do we get the impression? Because if you look up Google Alex Garland, it starts by saying he's not Australian. So why did people think he was? Do you have any understanding of that?
He might have lived in Australia or been making a few films in Australia for a few years. I don't know.
Well, they might get confused with that documentary, Australian Alex Gibney.
Yes.
Perhaps, yeah.
Maybe they got him confused with that well-known Australian Alex First.
Thank you very much indeed. Now, there is going to be another 28 days later, isn't there? There's it's a Alex Garland follow-up as well. That's being...
Yeah, comes out 28 days later.
Thank you very much. Ex Machina, he did Civil War, which was a terrific movie. Anyway, Warfare. Firstly, huge plaudits because it's 95 minutes, Sandy. Now, that's got to immediately get a green tick, correct? And then...
Absolutely.
Then we've got to say that I'm traumatized having seen this movie. It is intense. It's authentic. It's an MA-rated movie with good reason, and it continues the co-writer and co-director Garland's positive trajectory. I mean, he's just making some excellent movies. Now, it's based upon memories of an incident that occurred, and it occurred in 2006 on the 19th of November. And that's when a platoon of American Navy SEALs was on a surveillance mission in insurgent territory. It was controlled by Al-Qaeda, and it was in Ramadi in Iraq. The goal of the SEALs, a couple of Iraqi scouts was with them, were with them, and then a couple of Marines as well. Their goal was to slip into and to keep a close eye on an urban residential area. And they were to do so under the cover of darkness. They were sent there to ensure the safe passage of ground forces in the area, which was going to happen the following day. So this team of SEALs was divided into 3 groups. The first operation was embedded on the 2nd floor of an apartment building. And amongst their number, there was a medic and a sniper. Elliot Miller was his name, played by Cosmo Jarvis, who we saw recently in another movie, and leading petty officer Joe Hildebrand, who I don't understand why, but he was renamed Sam in the movie, played by Joseph Quinn. Perhaps he's still an active soldier or something. I'm not sure. But the communications officer is called Ray Mendoza, played by DeFero Wune Tai. And the officer in charge of the op is an excellent actor who keeps on keeping on. His name's Will Poulter, and he plays a guy called Eric. So what was meant to be a dangerous but straightforward operation for the Navy SEALs became anything but. So almost 2 decades after this incident in Ramadi, right? I said 2006, Mendoza, who was one of the characters I spoke about, the communications officer, by then retired from the Navy, was working as a Hollywood stuntman. He was specialising in choreographing gunfight sequences. Through a stunt coordinator, he met Alex Garland, and he became a consultant on Civil War. He specifically designed battle scenes, and that included the assault at the end of the movie on the White House. These two collaborators, and I'm talking about Garland and Mendoza, became friends. Halfway through filming Civil War, Mendoza shared the Ramadi story with Garland. Subsequently, Mendoza became the co-writer and co-director of this movie, Warfare. So the pair set rules for themselves not to embellish or dramatise events just for effect. It's to basically keep it as real as they possibly could. So it was anything but to glorify war. So incredibly tense is Warfare from the get-go. We are embedded with the soldiers, we being the audience. We're watching, we're waiting for something to happen. And the minutes really do tick by. And from the sights of a long-necked machine gun positioned behind a hole in an outside wall, we see the comings and goings in the building opposite. Now, in an adjacent room where members of the platoon have set up, there's a video surveillance happening and communication via walkie-talkies. So they're talking to the other, I said it's divided into 3 groups of Navy SEALs, they're talking to the others. So the American troops are in full battle dress, I should also add. Also in the house where they are embedded, they've chosen as their base, obviously this home. They didn't know, but there's a family they surprised while they were asleep in the middle of the night. And this family's now huddled together under guard. They're told to keep quiet, keep their hands where they can be seen. So what a realistic approach to this subject matter. Doesn't pull any punches. It's in your face for its entirety. So there's this sort of boots on the ground story. It's visceral, takes you to the heart of combat in a way that I can't say I've seen before. And I've seen a lot of war movies. It's shocking. It's terrifying. It's about young men doing a job caught in the crosshairs. And as difficult, as painful, as disturbing as it is to watch, I really admire its conceit. It's like we're there alongside the soldiers in the heat of battle. The filmmakers, they're intent on showing us what it was like to be surrounded and trapped under fire. So the sights and sounds that we see, the discipline, the frustration, the fear, the screams, they are long going to remain with me. Remarkable picture. It really is brilliantly conceived and executed, featuring a litany of outstanding performances. You do need a strong constitution to sit through it. I actually felt like crying out a few times, enough already, because my discomfort was so palpable. But it's got a ring of truth in its DNA, and that adds enormous gravitas. Does it not, Sandy?
I loved this film, and I really don't like war movies. When the invitation came to us, and it was like, get in the battle with all of these guys, I thought, no, I won't bother going to see that. I'm not one for war action type stuff, and I dare say there are a lot of people of my gender who would probably feel the same. I can't tell you how pleased I was that I went. I absolutely loved it. You sit on the edge of your seat from the minute that it starts, and it builds really quietly. It's about 30 minutes before you get any action.
Yes.
And the opening scene where this group of well, I didn't even know they were Navy SEALs at the time. They're, GIs are mucking around and leering at women's bodies on a screen. It just paints this picture of the camaraderie between this platoon. And that's exactly what they were. They were really all great friends. And it goes for about 30 minutes before any action happens. And I kind of sat there and thought to myself, well, what's going on here? Where's the war? But my goodness, once it starts, it just doesn't let up. There's absolutely no respite. One sequence on the street is so immersive that I found myself ducking to avoid a bullet spray. I mean, it's quite insane. It's like one of those 3D movies where you just impregnated into the action. And it's
like virtual reality. It's kind of the equivalent of it. I agree. It's interesting that you talk about the 30 minutes. I was really conscious. I snuck a look at my watch, or my phone as it was, and it was 29 minutes in, Sandy. And like you were gripping your seat because you knew something was going to happen, but you didn't know when. And that's part of the beauty of the filmmaking here. I mean, I don't know, have you seen many action war films or not?
Well, I mean, I have, like in the old days, you saw those sort of classic ones I remember seeing, none of which I could actually name now.
Well, I mean, did you see Saving Private Ryan?
Yeah, that's exactly the one I was thinking of. Thank you for that. Yeah. But I mean, that didn't, I mean, that was eminently forgettable. I mean, yeah, it was a good film and well done and, well acted and all of that. Warfare is something that I am never going to forget. And I've got a really bad memory. I see that many films. You could ask me about one I saw a week ago and I wouldn't remember about it anymore. Warfare will stick with me always. It really is an incredible portrait of pain and horror. You see close-ups of the dry, cracked lips, the faces caked in dust and debris, the sheer terror in these guys' eyes. But what was most amazing, I think, about it is because it's so loud. That sound, as you mentioned, Alex, is such a key here. There's pounding gunshots and ground-shaking explosions, the ear-splitting roar of the fighter jets, and, of course, those agonizing screams of the soldiers. And there's also there's no massive script here. It's really lean, mean storytelling.
Yes.
Everybody, there's no score and there's no dialogue that really carries it forward. It's just the action, the looks on their faces that shows you everything. I think that this is a film that's not going to convince anybody to sign up to the military in a hurry, but it really is a tribute to those who do. As I said, totally unforgettable. And whether you're of my gender persuasion or not, and, most men would go, yeah, I mean, I really want to see this. And you're right, you do have to have a bit of fortitude to sit through it all because at times it's quite uncomfortable. But, ladies, go with your partners. It's an experience you're not likely to have again.
Less is more is the way that this is played, because there is a lot of waiting for something to happen. And that is what makes this movie so special. I must admit that I thought Saving Private Ryan was a remarkable movie, so I still do remember that. But this is at a different level. So what about you, Greg King? Did you get as much out of this movie as Sandy and I did?
Well, this is another example of what I call combat porn that takes you right into the heart of battles. You mentioned the opening scene of Private Ryan. There's been a lot of other films like that one in Benghazi that takes you into the heat of the combat as well. But this one is apparently unfolds in real time. So, it takes place, all that action takes place over the course of about 40 minutes there. But you mentioned the sound design. The soundscape and sound design is particularly effective here. The sound of the guns, the screams of the soldiers wounded, the bombs, the plane flying over, that scene there is tremendous. And also, the fact that most of the cast are not really that known allows you to go into it without those sort of heroics you get from having big name actors in the lead roles there. It's claustrophobic, it's intense, it's visceral, but it also shows what it's like under fire and immerses us in the heat of battle here. And you sort of can't get away from it. As unvarnished and real as you said, the pain is almost palpable there. We're immersed in the situation. And yeah, it's hard to look away. So yeah, it's an intriguing little film.
I reckon if this was in the Oscars for this year, it would have received Oscar nominations. It's that worthy.
Well, what do you think? Cinematography probably worthwhile as the way it goes in. A lot of handheld camera work obviously there to follow the soldiers and take us inside what's happening.
Well, Peter, we've got 3 for 3. Surely this is going to be up there for you as well.
Oh, look, I very much found it a very strong film, and it's certainly classified as a docudrama. So it recreates a particular event and does it very well indeed, in a very visceral sort of way. However, I have seen a number of other films from other countries, Korea, China, etc., which go immerse the viewer into a wartime situation. I remember The Hurt Locker, which was very strong. I remember Three Kings, which also dealt with somewhat similar. So I've seen similar sorts of films. So it didn't hold out for me anything special or unique, but it was
Really?
very good, very well made, and is a good visceral experience as a docudrama.
I must admit that whilst I'd seen those as well and they were most impactful, I didn't get the same jolt from the others as I did from this. Peter, you obviously did.
I didn't
Uh-huh.
get the same result. No, I thought it was okay. It was well made. It was convincing, but I didn't find it especially impactful.
Wow.
Yeah, I agree. I was flashing back to some of those other films we've seen that have been really intense combat scenes. Lone Survivor, that one about the soldiers in Benghazi fighting for 16 hours, and all those other films as well. That remind me. I saw a lot of those elements in this film as well, and especially the opening D-Day landing sequence in Saving Private Ryan, which was unforgettable in its gritty and visceral approach to war.
It was certainly that. So, all right. Well, Sandy, you and I are going to have high marks on this. I'm not convinced now about the others. So let's start with you, Peter, as the, I think you'll be a lower mark. What are you going to give Warfare, which is rated MA and runs for 95 minutes?
Oh, look, I was still very impressed by the film, and Alex Garland is such a good filmmaker. So I still gave it 8 out of 10.
Okay, which is a very good mark. And let's go for you, Greg.
7 to 7.5.
All right, so you're the low one. All right. Sindy,
Oh, I'm going a 9. I
and
love
I'm going a 9 too. So there you go, folks. It's really up there. It's since the Oscars, this has had more impact than any other movie I've seen. You probably would agree with that, Sandy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, because my computer's not working, Sandy, what was the second movie that you wanted to talk about today?
We could talk about Drop, if you like. That's
I reckon
in
we should
cinema
talk.
now.
I reckon we should definitely talk about Drop because this is MA rated. It runs also for 95 minutes, so exactly the same as we've just spoken about. But it is totally different. It's an entertaining psychological thriller, and it involves some seriously bad, I'm talking life-threatening trolling in the most unlikely of circumstances. So you've got a widow who's also a psychologist, whose name is Violet, played by Megan Fay. And that's Megan spelt Meghan. I'd never seen Megan spelt with a double N, but there you go. So Violet is a mother. She's got a 5-year-old son called Toby, played by Jacob Robinson. She is still traumatized by the domestic violence that she experienced. And Toby was younger, obviously, but was privy to this domestic violence. Now, since her husband died, she has not been on a date. But over the past 3 months, she's been speaking to this guy, a photographer, and now they've agreed to meet. She is clearly nervous, as you would be. So Violet's sister Jen, played by Violet Bean, comes over to babysit Toby. So it is that Violet heads off to this, they're in Chicago, to a swish high-rise fine dining establishment which has killer views. That's where she meets this photographer that she's been talking with. He's 32 years of age. His name's Henry, played by Brandon Skellner, and he has actually been the mayor's photographer for the past 5 years. And he does seem like a pretty good guy, Henry. He arrives a few minutes late. So while waiting at the bar, Violet receives a rather mysterious and creepy text message from someone she doesn't know. So once Henry arrives, they sit down at their table, which is by the window, and she gets bombarded by more messages. And these messages are known as drops, hence the title of the movie, Drop. They include one threatening the life of her son if she does not adhere to the texter's demands. At first, Violet shows her date that she's receiving unwanted online attention. He dismisses it as a prank. But once the texter tells her to keep her mouth shut or else, she tries to navigate this date while doing what the texter wants her to do. He appears to be tracking her every move, listening to everything that she's saying. It's quickly established that the drops she's receiving are coming from within the confines of this high-class, high-up restaurant. But she can't put a finger on who the perpetrator is. The texter doesn't just have an axe to grind with Violet, but with Henry too. That's why he doesn't want her to leave the restaurant. So there's desperation, there's tension. The situation goes from bad to worse. So who's the texter? What's he, she, they after? Why? That becomes clear as the plot develops. So it's a high-stakes game. It's a cat and mouse game, really, with all those in that restaurant, the patrons and the staff, under suspicion. And among them is an older man on a blind date named Richard, played by Reed Diamond, who Violet meets at the bar. There's also a charming bar worker called Cara, Gabrielle Ryan. Matt, Jeffrey Self, is an awkward, oversharing waiter on his first day on the job. Lindy, Sarah McCormack, is his boss, the host at the restaurant. Phil, Ed Weeks, is not backward in coming forward. He's the piano player. And Connor, played by Travis Nelson, is a fellow diner that Violet reportedly, or rather repeatedly, keeps bumping into. These texts accompanying the drops help ratchet up the intrigue, and they're writ large, literally writ large on the screen. The contention for the movie, inspired by real life, if you can believe that. One of the producers and his friend fell victim to a series of drops while they were holidaying with family overseas. And their experience translated into a script from Gillian Jacobs and Christopher Roach. I liked the high-stakes guessing game they created. Due to the inherent danger, it's kind of edge-of-the-seat stuff. But like with many films of this ilk, it does push the envelope, and to fully enjoy it, you'd be well served to suspend belief, especially as drop reaches its conclusion. And talking of that, in terms of the action, that final scene in the restaurant, it's not the final scene in the movie, but the final restaurant scene, certainly memorable. The director, Christopher Landon, does a good job working with the incendiary material at his disposal. He's the one ultimately responsible, of course, for tightening the strings. The whole idea is that Violet seems destined to run into a dead end every time she tries to find a way out of her invidious predicament. I really thought the gorgeous restaurant setting with the sparkling nighttime views was the perfect backdrop to it all. It added something. And then we've got the acting talent. Megan Fay, well, really like what she has to offer. She plays vulnerable and on edge well. Brandon Skellner, calm voice of reason as Henry, taken on a bit of a roller coaster ride by a woman that he likes but becomes unsure about. Violet Bean gives a spirited performance as the sister, Jen, and there's warmth about Gabrielle Ryan as the bar worker. Jeffrey Self's deliberately over the top, showing as the gay waiter, impossible to ignore. And each of the other actors also make their mark. I actually thought overall the casting choices were strong, and drops a wild, playful, nerve-wracking and a deadly ride. Is it not, Sandy?
Yeah, it really is. You said the words yourself that I'd describe it as, and it's a roller coaster ride. It's really good fun. That Megan Fay, we saw her in White Lotus. I don't know if you ever saw her
That's
in
the
that.
TV series.
Yeah, she lights up the screen. She is just absolutely beautiful. And this whole concept of digi-drops, I was questioning, is it a real thing? Can you actually, or is it just a fake construct that, as you can, what's it called when you send messages to one another?
Yeah. On various sharing platforms, yeah.
Yeah, no, on the phone when you can Bluetooth it, messages. Anyway, I still don't know if a digi-drop is a real thing, and I guess if it isn't, it soon will be. But it was really fun. There is a lot of holes in the script, as you know, but it's playful and it gets dark really quickly, and you can't take your eyes off her. I thought she was just fabulous. It's a bit like a game of Pluto. It draws the audience right in and going, who was it? Who is this sending the messages? What's this all about? So you're hanging off who done it for a long, long time. I liked it. It's fun.
Well, it's interesting. When I googled DigiDrops while I was listening to what you just said there's an Instagram provider called DigiDrop, but it's not exactly what you were talking about. What about you, Greg? Did you enjoy it or not?
Yeah, this was an entertaining thriller. I made a good use of the claustrophobic setting there, and that restaurant looked fantastic there. So great production design there. This is starts off like a romantic movie, a first date between these people. But because the film's produced by Blumhouse, who are better known for their horror films, we know that this is going to be something different than a meet-cute rom-com, and it certainly turns out that way. I thought director Christopher Landon, who's better known for some of the paranormal activity movies, did a good job of ratcheting up the suspense there. You've got a number of possible suspects, including all those characters you've identified, who could be the guilty one there. And I like the way that the phone messages were actually portrayed on the screen there. It worked out well. It was hold your attention, as you said, edge of the seat stuff. I thought it lost a bit in the final act, though, which descended into cliche. But apart from that, I quite enjoyed this one, yes.
What's that board game? Is it Cluedo? Is it? Or...
Yeah, Pluto.
There's a lot of board games.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. There are, Greg, thank you.
Some are more boring than others.
Well, Mr. Green in the whatever.
Well, the Pluto was Professor Plummer in the study with a pipe wrench or whatever it was.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's kind of a bit like that, isn't it?
I did actually turn Pluto into a film, you know.
Did they?
Yes.
I don't think I saw that. Oh, okay. Peter
would know. He would have seen it.
Peter, have you seen the Cluedo movie?
Yes, there is a Cluedo movie.
See?
Absolutely. Yep.
And you've seen it?
Yes. Oh, years ago, yes.
Of course, you must have seen
one of the cast in it.
You must have seen something in Uzbekistan that was made in the 1930s as well, Peter.
Well, I was playing Cluedo when they were still inventing electricity, so...
Correct.
Yes.
Well, you know, when you're a relic, you're a relic. Let's be honest.
That's the handle holder.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay, so did you drop to your knees having seen this one?
I didn't drop to my knees, but I must admit I was quite impressed by the clever construction of the screenplay, the whodunit quality that's already been mentioned, the twists and turns in the storyline. I didn't mind the way it concluded, but I won't say any more about that. Look, it was a good example of a mystery type thriller where you have to guess over a period of time about who is responsible for this situation, about whether any romance can come out of this situation, and also just understanding, I suppose, what can happen in a short period of time when you have to think fast to make decisions. And I thought that was very cleverly done. Yes, Greg, I agree with you about the set. They built a very clever set for the restaurant, which is where the film is largely set, although we do get to see another venue. And I was very pleased by this film. I didn't think I was going to like it.
This one reminded me a little bit of those other films with Salt, like Phone Booth and The Residence Locked. You know, one person being threatened minutes in a confined location.
Yeah, it's great.
Exactly.
I really love that claustrophobia. I think it works extremely well. I don't love it personally, but yeah, it does. All right, so look, let's get some scores for this movie, which is MO rated, 95 minutes. It's called Drop. So in terms of, I'm just going to try and, who's going to give the lowest mark here? Let's go with you, Greg.
Oh, first off the can. Okay, I'll give it a 7.
Sandy.
Yeah, 7.
Peter.
What a coincidence. I also gave it 7.
And I gave it 8. So there you go. I agree. I think, you know, the very end, once you leave the restaurant, that sort of
Loses it.
It loses a bit. And I suppose I didn't really, when giving it an 8, I didn't give it, and you know, perhaps it would have come down by half a peg, but it's around that mark. So it's a good fun film. Absolutely.
That was the problem with those other films I mentioned, Phone Booth and Locked, when they moved away from that initial construction setting, it tended to lose something.
What was there was another one that didn't. I think it won an Oscar for a female actor, and
You're not talking about
Room. Well done, Greg. I thought Room was extraordinary. Did you see Room, Sandy? Sandy, you with us? No, she's disappeared.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm still here.
Oh.
I loved Room. Absolutely.
I think Room was the complete package. Peter?
Yes, Room was very good. Buried is another one. But
Oh,
yeah,
Buried was scary as it. Did you see Buried, Sandy? I don't know about that.
Oh, I don't think I did.
Oh my golly! Right, turn the lights out and see Buried.
Thank you.
It's an amazing film and extraordinary. The other one. What was that? This wasn't. It was claustrophobic of sorts. That German movie, Peter or Greg, that was made into an American movie where people come and attack people in their own home.
Hidden Games, Funny Games.
Funny Games. Oh my golly.
Oh, the Michael Haneke film.
Michael Haneke film. You, Sandy, no? For that, you haven't seen it?
No,
Oh.
I'm writing these down, though, as
You've got these
to
two.
avoid or see.
Yeah, you really need. Yeah, see it with your partner, both of them. They are amazing. Those two films are phenomenal. So, great. Funny Games. But see the German version, I reckon. What do you think?
Even though the same director did the American version, it loses something in the cultural translation.
The dilemma is, I've got no idea. Okay, like in a situation like this, if somebody says, I want to see a movie, and I know you can get all these streaming services, but is there any sort of, I don't know, comprehensive something on the internet that you can put in a movie and sort of see where you can see it? I don't know. That I've never tried it. Are any of you aware of it? Because you know how certain things are out of print. I mean, if you put in Funny Games, German version, maybe AI these days will tell you where you can get it. Because otherwise...
Well, I can tell you that that film and others are screening in Melbourne as part of a season of Michael Haneke films.
Right, as we speak.
Yes.
Wow. Sandy, there you go. You got the option.
No, I won't, but thanks.
You've looked it up already? You've looked it up? Yeah.
No, I'll wait for another opportunity. Hey, can we talk about The Correspondent? Because that's one I did see and I think everyone should go to.
Yeah, okay, we'll do it. Well, I mean, most people, I reckon, would remember the story about Peter Gresta, the ex-ABC journo, and actually, is he still working? I don't know where he's working now. Do you know? Does anybody happen to know where he's working? Peter Gresta? No.
No.
Did you know?
I'll find out.
Did you know about the Peter Gresta story, Peter, before you saw the movie?
Yes, I did.
And Greg?
Yes.
Okay.
So all detailed, but I knew sort of.
Well, that's the thing.
Sorry.
Well, I wonder about that, Greg. When you see a movie made, within earshot of, it happened a long time ago, but you think you know it. Do you believe there needs to be more distance before making a movie, or do you think that making a movie even sooner than when this one was made is a good idea because it's got people's sort of, you don't have to spark too much memory in people's.
Well, you're asking how soon is too soon for a film like
Yeah, I am. It's a bad way of saying it, but yes. What do you think? What's the answer?
There's no answer, but Peter wanted the film to be made. He wrote the book of his story,
Yes.
and then was heavily involved in making sure there was a film made of it. And I suppose the other aspect is the prescient nature of people being detained in other countries, which needs to be highlighted in a story like this.
And again, it's facing journalists in now
Yes.
just for doing their job.
That's right.
And unfortunately, it's happening a lot. So this is a 2-hour movie, 119 minutes to be exact, M-rated, and it concerns the Aussie journo, arrested by Egyptian authorities in Cairo on the 29th of December 2013. In fact, I found it hard to believe it's been that long. We're talking more than 11 years. Now, he was working for Al Jazeera at the time, and he was on a 2 to 3 week cover over Christmas for another journo who was presumably on leave. So he was taken into custody alongside 2 other Al Jazeera reporters, one called Mohammed Fahmy and the other Bahir Mohammed. This has been written by Peter Duncan, and it's based on, as Peter said, the 2017 memoir, which was named The First Casualty, and it's an account of what happened. So Gresta was detained on trumped-up charges, including fabricating the truth and smearing the name of Egypt. He was sentenced to 7 years jail. His colleagues that I've referenced, Mohammed Fahmy and Baher Mohammed, received 7 and 10 years, respectively. So it shows them being moved around the Egyptian prison system, reveals how on occasions they turned on one another. It champions the family support that Gresta received. Peter's brother Andrew was a great source of comfort in Egypt. His parents also flew over there. The film captures what Gresta was subjected to, how he coped, and what he thought about while in captivity. Notable throughout is the fate of a fellow war correspondent, a Brit called Kate Payton. The pair was working for the BBC in Mogadishu in 2005, okay, 8 years before Peter Gresta was arrested in Egypt. That's in 2005 when a bullet struck Payton, and those memories loom large for Gresta. Without doubt, there's extra clout associated with a real-life story. And we talked about that earlier on about the film Warfare. So it is with The Correspondent. And what the film does go into detail about is the fine attention to detail here that you may not have known about, as Greg referenced earlier. We become invested in what happens, in the injustice of what's been perpetrated and continues to unfold. One of the benefits of this movie is you've got an excellent actor in Richard Roxburgh, really well cast as this sort of cool operator that Gresta was. And he comes across as intelligent and disciplined and basically shown to keep his wits about him throughout his ordeal. The tension in the relationship between he and Mohammed Fahmy is a really important subplot, and Julian Maroon wears his heart on his sleeve as the highly opinionated Fahmy. More simpatico between Gresta and Baher Mohammed. The pair gels over backgammon, which they play regularly just to pass the time. Rahel Rahman is measured as Baher Mohammed. When initially imprisoned, Gresta forms a relationship with a young activist called Allah Abd el-Fattah. His advice is sage. Majian Aria presents Allah Abd el-Fattah as decent and wise beyond his years, despite the invidious situation in which he finds himself. Kate Payton, by the way, shows herself as being in the same mould as Gresta, dedicated to uncovering the harsh truth of war-torn regions. And as Payton, Yael Stone comes across as a valued confidant and friend. Peter Gresta's path, hardly straightforward, and the director Kriv Stenders pays attention to the twists and turns. We witness the mental toll and are left admiring just how Gresta worked his way through what turned out to be 400 days of captivity to come out the other end intact and still sane. So it's a film worth seeing, The Correspondent. Do you agree with that, Sandy?
Yeah, I really like The Correspondent. I mean, I think partly because we lived through it and also because being a working journalist during that time, it was so important and so heavy what was happening to him, and nobody could do anything. I think the acting here, Richard Roxburgh, was really good at it.
Outstanding.
And then I was shocked when the credits roll at the end to find out how many journalists are still incarcerated in today's world. It just blew me away completely. Yeah, it's a good story. It's told well, with a lot of fine acting right throughout. And I think it's a story that's important that everybody knows, really, that these things keep happening. But, you know, moral of the story is don't take anybody's Christmas shift. Do your own thing.
Yeah, do your own thing. Well, but I mean, beyond that, I think what you spoke about just before is important. I was aware of how many journos had been imprisoned for doing their jobs, detained and so forth. I mean, it's a dangerous profession. It is. And especially dangerous when you're covering civil war and when you're covering dissent and speaking out. I mean, you can be in so many places in the world and they don't want anybody to have an opinion that's other than the party line. And that's again very much about this movie. And yet to be a journalist, I mean, you need whistleblowers, you don't want nicely manufactured PR releases. You get down and you get dirty and you get people revealing the truth. And that's what gets journos into trouble. So,
Well, journo may be a thing of the past, the way America's going, right?
well, yeah, I mean, it's also interesting. And again, I'm not trying to have a go specifically at one side or another, but, when you've got certain people invited to news conferences and not others, right? Traditionally, the idea of a news conference was that journos that are legitimate journos are invited to a news conference. But now they seem to pick and choose exactly who can and who can't go, which is, it's not the way that it should work in terms of giving people freedom of the media. Greg, Peter, we haven't had you
Just
second.
before you go to Peter, Alex, I'm going to love you and leave you.
Give me a
said
score.
my-
Give me a score out of 10. Correspondent rated M.
I'll give the correspondent 8.
And I'm going to give it an 8 as well. So what about you, Peter?
I was very impressed by this film. It told a story so well about Peter Gresta and about his incarceration and about his accusations that he was a terrorist because he was working for a news organization that was getting the other side of the conflict that was going on in Egypt at the time. So there are a lot of aspects to the story. There's the issue of the journalists who are treated quite badly because no matter what their involvement is, they'll be accused of being one-sided one way or the other. I also was impressed by the handheld camera and the way that Krause directed the film, especially because he also did such a good job with the recent film on the Vietnam War, Danger Close, another excellent film by Krause. The screenplay by Peter Duncan, who wrote Children of the Revolution, etc., was a very close collaboration with Peter Gresta, and Peter was on set most of the time to be part of the filmmaking process to make sure that everything was done exactly as it happened. And Richard Roxburgh was a terrific choice as Peter to play that role. I was very impressed by this film. It is a powerful Australian film, and we should be making more of it and not dismissing it. Oh, it's just another Australian film, and people tend to dismiss Australian films somewhat, which is a great shame because this is an excellent film and deserves much more recognition.
We spend a lot of money on more esoteric material, Peter, and I think that's one of the problems that not us as film reviewers have, but that the public has, getting access to movies that this feels much more mainstream to me, and I think it deserves to do well as a result. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with doing off-centre films. I don't know, have you seen The Surfer yet, which we'll talk about in weeks to come?
No.
Okay.
And don't forget, Canada makes lots of off-centre films, and they are very successful.
Yes.
New Zealand.
Yes, that's true. They do. We don't seem to tolerate as much. Have you seen The Surfer yet, Greg?
No.
Okay, this is the new Nick Cage movie.
Yes, I know what it is. I'm waving to see it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yes. So, Peter, because we've already got Sandy's score and my score as 8 out of 10, what are you going to give this one?
I was very impressed by the film. It deserves a lot more recognition, 9 out of 10.
Oh, my golly. Wow. I thought it was good, but I wouldn't go that far, obviously. What about you, Greg?
Well, first of all, I just want to say how timely it is at the moment as a reminder of the constant threats to freedom of the press that we're seeing at the moment and journalistic integrity, which is under threat at the moment too. And these scenes seem even more urgent and relevant today. It's a fairly grim film at times, so not quite as grim as Midnight Express, but it takes you inside the prison routine. And there, I thought Richard Roxburgh did a good job there of conveying both his attitude, his despair, in the prison there. It reminds me it was shot in Sydney, actually. It looked so real that you thought it was stunning. Must be
Yes.
in Cairo. Just and the integration of archival footage of the riots on the streets, was quite seamlessly done. So I was surprised when I read it was actually shot on location in a couple of disused prison outside Sydney there. But yeah, it's a really impressive story there. The trial sequences add a bit of tension to the film, even though it's a sort of Kafkaesque nightmare what he went through there, looking at the corrupt, unjust system of Egypt there. The performance is really good. I like the Julie Maroon as Muhammad and Rahel Ramnan there as Bahir, these two colleagues who are also arrested and charged alongside him. The film caught the sort of daily routine, the grind, the routine, the tedium of prison life quite effectively, I thought. So, yeah, it's a good film. No flashback sequences to his time in Mogadishu with Kate Payton added a bit of context to the guilt and frustration he feels there. And I thought Jeffrey Hall did a good job with the cinematography there, handheld cameras, working in close-up, all that kind of thing. So a good film.
Out of 10.
7 to 7.5.
Okay, so we're all recommending it, which is terrific. Now, you're on J-Air, 88 FM. Please join up. By all means, $54 gets you membership for the year, and it helps sustain the radio station, which is obviously our desire to entertain you for 24 hours a day with lots of interesting news, views, and also music. Let's talk about a movie called Sinners. So evil pervades. It's the fifth collaboration between the writer and director Ryan Coogler and Michael B. Jordan. Black Panther, Fruitvale Station, Creed, and there's a sequel to Black Panther as well. So this one's quite long.
That didn't have Jordan. You're thinking Creed 2.
Oh, I'm thinking Creed 2. There you go. Very good. So thank you for the correction. This is MA rated, Sinners, and it's 137 minutes. So we're in Mississippi in 1932. Which is where identical twin brothers, they say they're cousins, but they're twins, aren't they? They're known as Smoke and Stack, like the names. Both played by Jordan, return after 7 years away, and they were part of the Chicago gangland scene. I think they worked for Al Capone at one
There
point.
must be something in the water at the moment in Hollywood, actors playing multiple roles. You had Robert Pattinson in Mickey 17 and Robert De Niro in the Alto Nights.
I don't think there's ever been a period where three do it in such close succession. I agree. 3 films. But they were also in the trenches in Germany in World War I. So they're very, very close, these brothers. And now wearing fancy threads, pockets full of cash, and they've got a truckload of liquor, they buy a disused mill that they want to turn into a juke joint. And they renew acquaintances with former love interests and folks they knew that with the right incentive will help them out in terms of setting up the juke joint for a bit of fun and games and people dancing and so on and so forth. See, in terms of the love interest for Smoke, the love interest is a hoodoo conjurer and a healer called Annie, played by Wunmi Masaku. And for Stack, it's the now married Mary Haley Steinfeld, whom he left high and dry. So with them is their cousin, a young sharecropper called Sammy Moore, played by Miles Caton, who is the son of a preacher, and he's known as, well, logically, Preacher Boy. He is a gifted blues musician, and he's also a singer. So Smoke and Stack are going to headline him alongside a local blues legend called Delta Slim. Delta Slim, played by Delroy Lindo, who can't say no to a drink, that being his choice of poison. To help out with the hospitality is Grace, Lee Jun Lee, and her husband, Bao Cho, played by Yao, and they run a couple of local grocery stores. And also in the picture, a hefty sharecropper called Cornbread, played by Omar Miller, who's been engaged to serve as doorman at this juke joint. For his part, Sammy, this is the cousin, the young sharecropper, his head is turned by a good-looking young lady called Pearline, played by Jamie Lawson, a woman in a repressed marriage with a taste for the blues. So obviously the fact that he can sing and he can play is attractive to her. The jute joint is up and happening very, very quickly, and a good time's being had by all, until the appearance of a very charismatic white missionary. Remick, played by Jack O'Connell, and his two offsiders are preaching and singing about peace and love, and they're looking for entry to the Duke. But Smoke and Stack are wary. They block them. And as it turns out, with good reason, because their true purpose is far more sinister, and theirs is a blood sport. Sinners is a movie with two distinct parts, and perhaps we'll call them before and after. It swings wildly. And the before is the lead up to the opening of the joint and its immediate acceptance by the patrons crying out to let their hair down. The latter, it's the mayhem created by the arrival of Remick and others. This is a horror with a uniquely Southern Gothic lens. I was intrigued. I was involved. That had a lot to do with the look and feel of the movie. Quite atmospheric, like the attention to period detail, the sets, the costuming, the prosthetics created for the soul-possessed characters, and also the music. I like Michael B. Jordan. I really do like him most of the time. Excels in the dual lead roles. Brimful of confidence as Smoke and Stack, each keeping the other in check. The pair is stronger together. They know which way's up. They balance each other out. Miles Caton brings youthful exuberance to Sammy Moore. His eyes wide open. He's looking to absorb as much as he can as he begins living his dream, being a musician. There's a world weariness to Delroy Lindo's representation of Delta Slim. Get the impression that it has lived through a great deal. Hailey Steinfeld brings a yearning to Mary. Wunmi Wasaku is spiritual as Annie. Lee Ju Lin is nothing if not pragmatic as Grace. And Jack O'Connell's Remick is a wolf in sheep's clothing. So Smoke and Stack live out the adage, which is also a line that's dropped in the film. If you keep dancing with the devil, one day he's going to follow you home. I liked Ryan Coogler's direction. He's at his creative best. Lots of surprises and shocks. And among the many highlights is Sammy singing an original number, I Lied to You, to the receptive crowd at the jute joint. And lest you walk out when the final credits start rolling, you stand to miss part of the narrative thread. You've got to stay to the end. When we saw the media screening, it was quite extraordinary that 96 to 97% of the audience had left and there were still things happening on the screen. So please do not do that. Peter, what did you think? Peter?
He's fallen asleep.
Yes,
Peter.
no, I'm still here.
Well, we couldn't hear you, so now we can. Go for
Now you can. Oh, okay. I was very impressed by this very distinctive film. This is such a multi-layered story set in 1932, and then it flashes forward, but we won't explain a bit more about that. It deals with so many issues related to the Black experience, to the Ku Klux Klan, and I have to mention it because it's a significant part of the film, the way encroaching evil in terms of vampires are part of the narrative.
It's amazing. It's amazing. Now, we've only got very little time, Peter, so I'll ask you to sum it up very quickly with a score out of 10. And
all right, very quickly. It's really well directed. The two post-credit sequences. Yes, when I saw it last night, people had walked out. Everyone missed it. But it was, a terrific, unique, distinctive film, which was very impressive.
And you, Greg?
Yeah, I like the way that the two Michael B. Jordan characters interacted there. They were so seamlessly done, you could almost swear they were different actors there. I also thought Miles Caton was defined there as the young preacher boy.
Yeah, cousin, yeah.
He was fantastic.
Yeah, I agree.
But in fact, that this is a African-American vampire film as a far cry from those blaxploitation films like Blackula and that from the 70s, because this one does, as Peter mentioned, does go into all that sort of generational trauma of African-Americans with the slavery, the Ku Klux Klan and all that sort of stuff as well. It touches on that. When the violence does come, the vampires get into the picture, it does turn bloody and nasty quite quickly. But a little bit of a slow build-up there, but that's part of the character building and the setting of the scene. Quite a good little film, and a bit of an unusual take on the vampire lore.
Excellent. And score out of 10, Greg?
Again, another 7. 7.5.
Only 7.5. Okay, Peter.
I gave it 9 out of 10. Great film.
Oh my golly, and I gave it an 8 out of 10. Folks, we are out of time again, and I wish you well in your cinema going. Greg King, thank you so much, and Peter Krause likewise, and Sandy, who had to leave unfortunately early. Appreciate her contribution. Till next time, over and out. First on film and entertainment.